It's strange how people think love is a battlefield. But no one tells you that sometimes, the war isn't between couples. Sometimes, it's between strangers, one fighting for love, and the other fighting to destroy it. My name is Miriam Kalu, and 3 months ago, I was planning the happiest day of my life, my wedding to David, the man who'd been my rock for 2 years. But I didn't know that in the shadows, someone else was plotting to tear us apart before I could even walk down the aisle. And it all began with an envelope. An envelope that would burn holes in my trust and push me into doing something I never imagined I was capable of. David and I met in Abuja during a corporate training seminar. I was in accounting, he was in logistics. He wasn't flashy, but there was something grounding about him, something real. In a city where most men hid behind fake promises and borrowed cars, David was painfully genuine. After 2 years of dating, he proposed in the simplest way, on a rainy Saturday, with a modest ring and trembling hands. I didn't care about diamonds, I cared about him. We set the wedding date for August and began preparing like every couple, guest lists, fabric shopping, food tasting, and endless family politics. But in May, my life took a dangerous turn. One Thursday morning, I found a thick brown envelope shoved under my apartment door. It wasn't addressed. No name, no return address. Just there. Curious, I tore it open. Inside were divorce papers, official-looking, with seals, stamps, and even a signature from the High Court of Abuja. The petitioner's name made my blood run cold. David Chakwuma. And the respondent's name? Amara Nady. I frowned. David was never married before, or so he told me. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages. The papers were written in the stiff, impersonal language of law, irreconcilable differences, abandonment, division of property. But one detail made my heart pound harder. The date of filing, just 6 weeks ago. My stomach churned. Had David been lying all along? Was he still married to someone else? And more importantly, why were these papers slipped under my door? That evening, when David came over, I decided not to attack him. Instead, I dropped the envelope on the table between us. "What's this?" I asked quietly. He blinked, confused, then picked it up. As his eyes scanned the first page, his face shifted from confusion to shock to anger. "This is fake," he said, voice tight. "Miriam, I have never been married to anyone named Amara. I swear." I crossed my arms. "Then how do you explain these?" He grabbed the papers and pointed at the signature. "This isn't mine. And look here, the font, the court seal, it's all wrong. Whoever made this is trying to cause trouble." Trouble. That word sat heavily in the air. I wanted to believe him, God knows I did. But doubt had a way of planting itself in your heart and growing vines around your trust. Over the next few days, I couldn't shake off the unease. I began digging. I asked a friend at the Federal Marriage Registry to check if David's name appeared in any marriage records. She called back 2 days later. "Miriam, I found a match. There's a marriage record for a David Chakwuma and Amara Nady. Married 3 years ago in Enugu State." My head spun. Was David lying after all? When I confronted him with this new information, he sat me down and told me a story I didn't expect. "Yes," he admitted, "I married Amara 3 years ago. But it wasn't a real marriage, it was an arrangement. My mother was dying, and Amara's family was close to ours. She was supposed to marry me on paper so my mother could die happy, thinking I'd settled down. We never lived together, never loved each other. As soon as my mom passed, Amara was supposed to sign the annulment papers." "Supposed to?" I asked. David's jaw clenched. "She refused. She said she wanted half my assets, or she wouldn't sign. Miriam, she's been holding that paper marriage over my head for 2 years. I've been saving money for a real lawyer to end it properly. I felt a strange happy, thinking I'd settled down. We never lived together, never loved each other. As soon as my mom passed, Amara was supposed to sign the annulment papers. Supposed to? I asked. David's jaw clenched. She refused. She said she wanted half my assets, or she wouldn't sign. Miriam, she's been holding that paper marriage over my head for 2 years. I've been saving money for a real lawyer to end it properly. I felt a strange cocktail of emotions, relief that David wasn't completely lying, but anger that he hadn't told me from the start. 2 weeks later, another letter arrived. This time, it wasn't slipped under my door, it was delivered by courier. Inside was a handwritten note from Amara herself. Miriam, I hear you're marrying my husband. That's sweet. But just so you know, our divorce isn't final. In the eyes of God and the law, he's still mine. If you think you can replace me, think again. I'm not leaving without a fight. There was something unhinged about the handwriting, uneven, slanted, with random words underlined 3 times. I showed it to David. His face darkened. She's escalating. Escalating was an understatement. Over the next month, strange things started happening. My bridal gown shop called to say someone had cancelled my order. My landlord claimed my rent was overdue, even though I had proof of payment. My phone began receiving anonymous calls at 2 a.m., the voice on the other end breathing heavily before hanging up. And then came the 3rd envelope. This time, it contained another set of divorce papers, dated just days ago, but once again, they were fake. Only this time, there was a photo paperclip to the front, David and I, taken from a distance, through the window of my apartment. Someone was watching us. I'd had enough. I tracked Amara down through social media. Her profile was full of glamorous photos, expensive dresses, and captions dripping with arrogance. She was beautiful, yes, but there was a sharpness to her smile, like she could cut you open without a second thought. I sent her a direct message. We need to talk. Face to face. Tomorrow. She replied within minutes. Finally. Name the place. We met at a cafe in Guarimpa. She walked in wearing a red bodycon dress, gold heels, and a perfume so strong it felt like a slap. She sat across from me, crossed her legs, and smiled. Miriam, she purred. The woman who thinks she's marrying my husband. I kept my voice calm. You and David were never a real couple. Why are you doing this? Her eyes glittered with malice. Because he owes me. 2 years of my life wasted. And now he wants to throw me away for you? I don't think so. If you're smart, you'll walk away. And if I don't? She leaned forward. Then I'll make sure you regret it. The divorce papers you got? Just the beginning. I left the cafe shaking. But in that moment, something inside me hardened. I realized Amara thought I was weak, that I'd back down if she scared me enough. She was wrong. The next day, I visited a lawyer. I explained everything, from the fake papers to the harassment. He listened quietly, then leaned back in his chair. Miriam, if you want her out of your life, you have 2 choices: wait for David to finish the slow legal process, or take the fight to her. Hard. What do you mean? I asked. He smiled faintly. If she wants to play games with fake divorce papers, give her real ones. Ones that end her marriage to David immediately. All you need is David's consent and signature. Once she's served, she has no choice. That night, I told David my plan. At first, he hesitated, worried it might provoke her further. But after the months of torment, he finally agreed. We filed the real divorce papers the next morning. And a week later, Amara was served. I expected rage. Screaming. More threats. Instead, she went silent. For 2 whole weeks, nothing happened. No letters, no calls, no anonymous photos. I started to believe it was finally over. Until one evening, I came home to find a single envelope on my bed. No one had been in my locked apartment, at least, no one who should have been. Inside was a single sheet of paper. On it were 4 words, written in that same unhinged handwriting. You made a mistake. The message, "You made a mistake," sat on my table like a ticking bomb. I read it over and over, my mind racing. The handwriting was unmistakably Amara's, but how did it get inside my locked apartment? I called David immediately. He rushed over, checking every door and window. Nothing was broken. No signs of forced entry. "She has a spare key," I whispered. David froze. "From when she used to come around before my mum died." That night, neither of us slept. Every creak of the building, every car passing outside made my skin crawl. The next day, I changed my locks, installed a bolt on the balcony door, and bought a small security camera. But paranoia has a way of seeping into everything. You start hearing footsteps in empty hallways, seeing shadows move in your peripheral vision. One evening, as I cooked dinner, my phone buzzed with a new message from an unknown number. "You think you've won? I've been in David's life longer than you. You're just a passing phase." I deleted it without replying. 2 days later, I was walking home from work when a car slowed beside me. The window rolled down, and there she was. Amara. "Nice outfit," she called out mockingly. "Shame if something happened to it." I kept walking, my pulse hammering. But she followed me slowly, her car crawling beside me like a predator stalking prey. Finally, she sped off, leaving me shaking on the roadside. David wanted to go to the police, but I knew how these things worked. Without physical proof of her threats, it would be just words. And words don't get restraining orders in Nigeria unless you can prove they're backed by action. But action was exactly what I feared next. The real blow came a week later. I was at work when HR called me in. They handed me an anonymous email sent to the company director, claiming I was involved in fraud, attaching fake screenshots of bank transactions in my name. I felt my knees go weak. It was Amara. It had to be. While the investigation was ongoing, I was suspended. Overnight, my income stopped. My wedding savings began to drain as I paid legal fees to clear my name. That night, I snapped. I called Amara. She answered on the second ring, her voice dripping with amusement. "Finally. I was wondering when you'd reach out. What do you want?" I demanded. Her answer was ice cold. "For you to disappear. Leave David. Go far away. And maybe I'll let you have your life back." My hands trembled, but my voice was steady. "No. You're going to lose, Amara. And when you do, it'll be in a way you never see coming." She laughed. "We'll see, Miriam. We'll see." The next morning, I took the security camera footage from my apartment, grainy, but clear enough to show a figure entering with a key at night. The timestamp matched the day I found her note. It was the proof I needed. I handed it to my lawyer. "Let's end this." 3 weeks later, Amara received a court summons, not just for harassment, but for unlawful entry and defamation. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt the scales tipping in my favor. But I should have known, people like Amara don't go down quietly. Because the night before her hearing, I found another envelope, this time, tucked under my pillow while I slept. Inside was a single wedding photo. Not mine. Hers. With David. And on the back, in red ink, "History always repeats itself." The sight of that old wedding photo felt like a knife twisting in my chest. David stood beside Amara, his arms stiffly looped around her waist, both dressed in ceremonial attire. His eyes in the photo didn't show love, but to anyone else, it looked real. I sat on the bed, clutching the picture, wondering how it had gotten under my pillow without me waking up. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept the lights on, phone in hand, heart pounding at every sound. The next morning, I showed David the photo. He sighed, rubbing his temples. She's trying to rewrite history, make you believe she'll always be in my life. Will she? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. His eyes hardened. Not after tomorrow. The court hearing was tense. Amara arrived dressed like she was attending a fashion show, sleek black dress, flawless makeup, smug smile. But when my lawyer presented the security footage of her entering my home at night, her expression twitched. Then came the fake divorce papers, the threatening messages, the harassment trail. Piece by piece, the image of the wronged wife she tried to paint crumbled. The magistrate's voice was firm. Mrs. Amara Nadi Chukwuma, your actions amount to harassment, unlawful entry, and defamation. You are hereby ordered to cease all contact with the complainant and the petitioner. Any further violation will result in criminal charges. It was a legal win. On paper, at least. But victory didn't feel like I imagined. David and I returned home, drained but relieved. For the first time in months, there was no message, no call, no envelope. Days passed. We began planning our wedding again, though my excitement was muted. Until one Sunday morning, I opened my front door and froze. There, on the welcome mat, lay a small wooden box. No name. No note. Inside was the gold wedding ring from the photo of David and Amara, cut clean in half. David clenched his fists. She's showing us she can still reach us. That court order means nothing to her. I stared at the broken ring for a long time. And then, something shifted in me. I realized we could keep fighting her forever, wasting our peace, or we could step out of the war entirely. That evening, I told David something he didn't expect. Let's leave Abuja. Not because she wins, but because we win when we choose peace over proving a point. 3 weeks later, we moved to Port Harcourt quietly, without announcing it to anyone. I changed my number, deleted my social media, and cut off every loose thread that could lead Amara back to me. We had a small wedding, just close friends, no grand reception, no online posts. It wasn't the fairy tale I once imagined, but it was ours. And most importantly, it was peaceful. Months later, I heard from an old colleague that Amara had been arrested in a separate case, this time for threatening another woman over a man. She'd moved on to a new obsession. It hit me then, people like Amara feed on attention, on reaction, on the game. You don't beat them by outplaying them. You beat them by walking off the field entirely. Sometimes, the greatest victory is not in destroying your enemy, but in refusing to be part of their war. Because some battles are traps, they look like fights for love, when in truth, they're just fights for control. And the only way to win is not to play.